Well, hello peeps. Hillbilly halfway today. Lovely day, better today. I got my brain slightly in gear. Some reason my sheep are following me around. I don't know why. Might be the Pied Piper. Right, all we're going to talk about today is we're going to talk about Brexit, of course, because it's a 5-year anniversary, and why I voted for it, and a short little bit about Welsh rugby the other day. Now, when I was out on Friday, it just happened to coincide with the rugby that was on, and Wales were playing France. Oh, I'm not going to pretend it was good. I watched a couple of games last year, late on in the season, when they said Wales were doing dreadful, and I went out, as you saw on here, and they played pretty bad for the first quarter of an hour, but then I got to say they played brilliant, to be fair. So it's a young squad, and I've seen this several times before because I've been following rugby since the early 80s, and when we went to the World Cup one year, our team was so bad, man alive, I can't remember the actual year. One of the coaches gave a load of new young lads a start, and they went out and they played fantastic. Shane Williams and all that were in it, I think. I can't remember now, but they blooded a lot of young lads. And sometimes when you get the new players coming through, it just needs time. That's all it needs. You can't keep blaming the coach. The coach is the best in the world, in my opinion. It's just new young players, they're learning to play together, and the young people, I think they'll come, actually. I'm not pretending it's good now, but I think they will come. There's going to be a few hard times with this year, the Six Nations and things, but they'll come together then, I think. But what I wanted to talk about, so I'm positive for Welsh rugby. It's just going to take some time to get them young lads together, and then as they come together, the teams that they play for get better, and then that team brings on other players. That's how it all works, let's be honest. So I was going to talk about Brexit. It's been 5 years since Brexit, and I'm sure there's people on you voted no or voted yes, and I don't care which way you voted. I'm talking about my own personal reasons. Now, I think this is what has made the split in society, because some people thought their opinion was worth more than the rest of us. Now, whatever you voted, and I totally understand why you voted, it's your own opinion. Now, there's a certain section of society, let's call them the Champagne Socialist set, on Conservative and Labour side and the Liberal side. And they're pretty much running the UK and the USA. And when that vote happened, they all decided at that moment that they got to teach us all a lesson. That's what it was all about. That's what it was all about. They tried to teach us a lesson, and we were bad people for voting against what they wanted. And from that moment on, they've turned into it's really like a 1984 novel. They tried to bully everybody. Everything that something was going to do to be positive about Brexit, they've tried to destroy it. They've tried to destroy our own country in front of our eyes to teach us all a lesson, and we shouldn't be vote like that. We've all seen it, and even now they're trying to say that Brexit destroyed the economy when we look across the channel and the EU is in tatters. Their economy is worse than ours. We know exactly why the economy is knackered at the moment. It's because of paying people to stay at home for 2 years on full pay. That's what happened. Lots of us said not to do it, but they did it anyway. Right, I'll just give you a brief example of why I voted Brexit. Now, this hasn't just happened because I hated a certain amount of people. It wasn't like that at all. Now, when I left school, there wasn't enough money on the farm for me to have a wage, so I had to go to work straight away, and I went to a factory called Setland Durwoods in Raider. and we were making files. A really good paying job on piecework, and Christ, I try to remember how many people were working in there. They had 2 factories. They had one in Landrinded Wells as well. Half of Raider were surviving off that factory on good wages. Now, people who are younger don't understand what happened at that time. This was around the early 90s to the 2000 time. The EU, went deeper into the EU and started giving out grants. The EU started giving out grants to other EU countries to take away basically manufacturing from the UK, and that's what happened here. I don't know if you can see me here, the light isn't very good. Take manufacturing away from the UK, and that's what happened with Setton and Durward's. They paid, I can't remember the actual country, it was something like Lithuania or something like that, I can't remember. Not Lithuania, what was it? Some Polish country. They gave grants to that country, and they ended up buying building factories over there, and all the production was switched to over there. So my little town lost that factory, and Landrinded Wells lost that factory, and that wasn't the only one. They were all over the UK and Wales, that was happening, and I never forgave them for that. That's why I voted Brexit, because I realised pretty quickly that our little town went to shit in a short time. There was a lot of money around before then with the work, and you couldn't name anybody in a house really who didn't work there. So remember, this happened all over the UK, and we were forced into something that we didn't want in there. So when the time came, and it wasn't only me, there was lots of Labour people thought the same as well, lots of union people thought the same. That's what it was like back then. Union people were not for the EU, never were. Tony Benn, John MacDonald, Jeremy Corbyn and Tony Benn, they hated the EU. And they were campaigning to get out of the EU. There's so many other things, lots of top Labour union leaders. And it's only the last 10 years where they've started bumming up from since the WEF started to come around. But anyway, I was a big follower of Tony Benn then. I didn't believe in everything he said, but I was a big follower of him because I always liked the way that he talked out in the open to people. He was very polite to people he didn't agree with, and he always left with a handshake even if he didn't agree with them, and that's what I think debate should be like myself. And he was for the individual, really. He was a big man for the individual and individual rights, and as I am. So at 2016 when that happened, so in 2016 when Brexit happened, that's what happened. That's why I voted it. Nothing to do with farming. Well, a little bit to do with farming because they were basically bullying us all with regulations. And I've told you in past videos how when that subsidy system changed, we nearly had to sell up because we lost a lot of income. Now, that's why I voted Brexit. Personally, I think we're better looking after our own selves without some people from some other countries telling us what to do. And you can, whoever's in power, like Labour in power now, or Conservatives or Reform or whatever, they can decide what they want to do instead of a faceless person in the EU who doesn't get voted in. That's why I voted Brexit. Now, I totally understand why other people didn't. I can see why they didn't. I don't care. It's none of my business. Your own vote is your own vote. But what happened from 2016 onwards is the ones that voted that they wanted to stay in the EU, they got their hackles up and they started calling us all names. That's what happened. And brainless idiots, all racists. And I'll tell you one thing, I won't forget that as long as I live. And I hope the rest of you don't as well. Because just because you don't get your own way, you don't get the right to start calling other people inferior. Now, there's a lot of people in the House of Commons at the moment. Hold on, let me move that way. Can't quite see. A lot of people in the House of Commons on all sides of this Brexit thing and in the civil service think that's over and done with. It ain't. Because All us Brexiteers ain't going to forget that, boy, I tell you. I will never forget what the names you called us, just because we voted in a different way to you. And as long as I go on voting, that'll be in the back of my mind, and I hope it's in the back of everybody's mind. Because 2016 will go down in history where the little men in the UK fought back against the establishment and we won. Now, it didn't happen as we wanted it to, but it ain't finished yet. If we can get reform in there to do it again, which could possibly happen, especially in Wales, because we're run by a lot of Welsh EU-loving lackeys at the moment. If we can get somebody in there to do the 2016 Brexit again, look out. So that's my talk about it today. I do think Brexit could have been so good, but we just had the might of the establishment trying to nobble it all the way. But always remember, those farmers in Europe are all protesting exactly the same as we're protesting here, because we're being run by the WEF. That's what's happening. Unnamed people behind the scenes deciding what we do. So that's Gaz's chat for today. Hope Wales get better on the rugby, but I think it's going to take at least all this season for them to start to get to work to play together. But there we are. I'd still vote the same way, and I'd push harder on the pen. Okay? All the best. Please subscribe down here, it doesn't cost you anything. Gas.